my daughter said in front of everyone. That old woman should already be buried. I just lowered my head. That night, I removed my name from her house loan. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I should have known something was wrong the moment I walked into my granddaughter Emma's birthday party. The silence that followed my entrance wasn't the warm kind you get when family gathers. It was the uncomfortable kind that makes your stomach twist into knots. I had spent the entire morning preparing. At 68 years old, my hands aren't as steady as they used to be. But I still managed to bake Emma's favorite chocolate cake from scratch. The same recipe I'd been using for 30 years, the one Natalie used to beg me to make when she was little. I wrapped the expensive art supplies Emma had been wanting in bright pink paper, tied with a bow I probably spent too much time perfecting. Walking through Natalie's front door, I felt proud. This was my contribution to my granddaughter's 15th birthday. This was what grandmothers do. The living room was full of Emma's friends, their parents, and my son-in-law Marcus sitting in his usual spot on the couch. Natalie emerged from the kitchen, her face wearing that expression I'd grown too familiar with over the years. The one that said I was already doing something wrong before I'd even spoken. "Mom, you're late," she said, not bothering to look at the cake in my hands or acknowledge the carefully wrapped gifts under my arm. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 2:15. The party had started at 2 o'clock. 15 minutes. I had been 15 minutes late because I'd stopped to buy Emma a card, wanting everything to be perfect. "I'm sorry, honey. Traffic was heavier than I expected." The room felt different as I set my things down on the kitchen counter. Conversation seemed forced, and I caught several of the other parents glancing at me with what looked like pity. Had something happened? Had Natalie said something before I arrived? Emma hugged me briefly, mumbling a thank you for the gifts, but even she seemed distant. My heart sank a little, but I pushed the feeling away. Teenagers are moody, I told myself. This was normal. The party continued around me, but I felt like I was watching it through glass. I helped serve cake, cleaned up spills, and smiled when photos were taken, but something was off. Every time I tried to join a conversation, it seemed to die. Every time I offered to help, Natalie would wave me away with an irritated sigh. Then came the moment that changed everything. Emma was opening her gifts, surrounded by her friends and their excited chatter. She held up the art supplies I'd bought, examining them briefly before setting them aside without much enthusiasm. My chest tightened, but I kept smiling. That's when Natalie, standing behind the couch with a glass of wine in her hand, made the comment that would replay in my mind for months to come. "Honestly, Emma, your grandmother has no idea what teenagers actually want these days." Her voice carried across the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's so out of touch. Sometimes I think that old woman should just accept that her time is over." The room went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, but the mortifying kind where everyone pretends they didn't hear what they just heard while desperately trying to figure out where to look. But Natalie wasn't finished. "I mean, seriously," she continued, her voice getting louder, probably emboldened by the wine and the audience. "At her age, she should be focused on enjoying her final years instead of trying to insert herself into everyone else's life. That old woman should already be buried for all the good she does anyone." I felt the blood drain from my face. The cake knife slipped from my hand, clattering onto the kitchen counter. Every person in that room heard her. Emma's friends, their parents, Marcus, Emma herself. They all heard my own daughter suggest I should be dead. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, some shocked, others embarrassed for me. Emma looked mortified, but she didn't say anything. Nobody said anything. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to defend myself, to ask her how she could say such a thing. Instead, I did what I'd been doing for years whenever Natalie hurt me. I simply lowered my head, picked up my purse, and walked toward the door. "Mom, where are you going?" Natalie called after me, but her tone suggested she was more annoyed by my reaction than sorry for what she'd said. I didn't answer. I couldn't trust my voice not to break. As I drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If that's how my own daughter sees me, what's the point of any of this? I sat in my living room that night, still wearing the dress I'd carefully chosen for Emma's party. The house felt different somehow, quieter than usual. Not the peaceful kind of quiet I normally enjoyed. but an emptiness that seemed to echo Natalie's words back at me from every corner. That old woman should already be buried. I kept replaying the moment, trying to understand how I'd raised a daughter who could speak about me that way. In front of strangers. In front of her own child. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid, but underneath it was something worse. The growing realization that this wasn't really about today. This was about years of being treated like an inconvenience by my own child. I walked over to my kitchen table, where I kept my bills and important papers in neat stacks. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just needing something to do with my hands while my mind processed what had happened. That's when I saw it. The mortgage payment receipt for Natalie's house, dated just last week. $1,800. Every month for the past 7 years. I pulled out more papers. The folder where I kept records of everything I'd paid for Natalie and her family. It had started as a way to track tax deductions, but looking at it now, it told a different story entirely. Emma's private school tuition. $43,000 over the past 3 years. I'd paid it because Natalie said the public schools weren't good enough, and she wanted Emma to have the best opportunities. Dance lessons, art classes, summer camps. Another $15,000 last year alone. The down payment for their house. $60,000 from my retirement savings. Natalie had promised to pay me back once Marcus got his promotion, but that was 7 years ago. Car repairs, emergency dental work, Christmas gifts, vacation money. The numbers blurred together as I added them up. Over the past decade, I'd given them nearly $300,000. Not loans. Gifts. Money I'd never asked them to repay because I believe that's what mothers do for their children. I thought about all the times I'd canceled my own plans to babysit Emma while Natalie and Marcus went out. All the weekends I'd spent cleaning their house while they slept in. All the family dinners where I cooked, served, and cleaned up while being treated like hired help. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Natalie's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, then let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I played the message. Mom, you left so dramatically today. Emma's asking why you got upset over nothing. Look, I know you're being sensitive, but you can't just storm off every time someone makes a joke. Call me back so we can talk about this like adults. A joke. She called it a joke. I deleted the message and went back to my papers. In the folder marked insurance, I found the beneficiary forms I'd filled out 2 years ago. Natalie was listed as the primary beneficiary of my life insurance policy. $800,000 that would go to her when I died. The same woman who thought I should already be buried. My hands were steady as I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking. It was 10:30 at night, but the internet never sleeps. I navigated to the mortgage account where I was listed as a co-signer for Natalie's house. The balance showed $147,000 remaining. With my name on the loan, I was legally responsible if Natalie couldn't pay. But I was also legally entitled to remove myself from the loan if I chose to. I'd helped her get approved for the mortgage because her credit score wasn't high enough on its own. The bank had required a co-signer with good credit and steady income. I'd been happy to help, believing I was giving my daughter and granddaughter financial security. But sitting there in my quiet house, still hearing Natalie's words echoing in my head, I realized something important. I wasn't helping them. I was enabling them to treat me badly while expecting me to be grateful for the privilege. The removal form was surprisingly simple. Just a few clicks, some electronic signatures, and a request for the bank to review my eligibility to be released from the loan. Since the property had appreciated significantly and they'd been making payments for 7 years, the loan-to-value ratio should be low enough to approve my removal. I filled out every field carefully, double-checking each entry. When I reached the section asking for the reason for removal, I typed, "I no longer wish to be financially responsible for this property." Before I could change my mind, I submitted the form. The confirmation email arrived immediately. The bank would process my request within 3 to 5 business days. If approved, Natalie would be solely responsible for the mortgage. If she couldn't qualify on her own, she'd have 30 days to find a new co-signer or pay off the loan in full. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. For the first time all day, I felt something other than hurt and humiliation. I felt relief. Tomorrow I would call my insurance company and change my beneficiary. I would call my lawyer and update my will. I would stop being a bank for people who saw me as an ATM with an expiration date. Natalie wanted me buried? Fine. As of tonight, the version of me who sacrificed everything for her ungrateful family was dead and buried. The woman who remained had other plans. I woke up Tuesday morning feeling different. Not better exactly, but clearer. The hurt from Sunday's humiliation was still there, lodged in my chest like a stone, but it was accompanied by something else now, purpose. My phone showed 4 missed calls from Natalie and 3 text messages. I didn't read them. Instead, I made myself coffee and toast, sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The email from the bank was waiting for me. My request to be removed from Natalie's mortgage had been approved. Effective immediately, I was no longer responsible for her loan. The bank had sent the notification to both Natalie and me at exactly 9:15 yesterday morning. She knew. That's why she'd been calling. I felt a small surge of satisfaction, quickly followed by something that surprised me, peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't responsible for someone else's financial burden. The house that I'd helped buy, that I'd been paying for, was no longer my problem. My next call was to my insurance agent, a kind woman named Patricia who'd been handling my policies for over 20 years. Mrs. Henderson, how can I help you today? I need to change the beneficiary on my life insurance policy. There was a brief pause. Of course. May I ask who you'd like to designate as your new primary beneficiary? I thought about this all night. The American Red Cross. And I'd like to add the local animal shelter as a secondary beneficiary. Certainly. I'll need to send you some forms to sign. This change will remove your daughter as beneficiary entirely. Are you sure about this decision? I'm absolutely sure. After Patricia promised to email the forms within the hour, I called my lawyer. Robert Mills had handled my affairs since my husband died 12 years ago. He was expensive but thorough. Denise, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I need to update my will, Robert. Completely. I see. Any particular reason for the urgency? I told him about Sunday's party, about Natalie's comment, about my decision to remove myself from her financial life. Robert listened without interruption, occasionally making small sounds of understanding. I want to leave everything to charity, I concluded. The house, my savings, everything. Natalie has made it clear she sees me as a burden. I don't want to burden her with an inheritance either. Denise, I have to ask, are you sure you're not making this decision while you're upset? These kinds of changes can be difficult to reverse. Robert, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. By noon, I had appointments scheduled for Thursday to sign new insurance forms and Friday to finalize a new will. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd saved, would go to organizations that actually helped people instead of enabling them. The doorbell rang just after lunch. Through the peephole, I could see Natalie standing on my porch, her face flushed and her jaw set in that determined way she'd had since childhood when she wasn't getting her way. I didn't answer. She rang again, then knocked. Mom, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. We need to talk about this mortgage thing. I sat in my living room chair, perfectly still, waiting for her to leave. Mom, this is ridiculous. The bank says you removed yourself from the loan without even discussing it with me. How could you do something so selfish? Selfish. The word almost made me laugh. After 30 years of putting her needs before my own, after sacrificing my retirement savings for her down payment, after paying her mortgage for 7 years, I was selfish for wanting to be free of the obligation. Fine, she called through the door. Be childish. But you need to fix this. Marcus and I can't qualify for the loan on our own. You know that. I knew that. That was exactly the point. She stayed on my porch for another 10 minutes, alternately knocking and threatening to call the police if I didn't answer. Finally, I heard her footsteps retreating to her car. The engine started, and she drove away with more force than necessary, her tires squealing slightly as she left my driveway. My phone rang immediately. I turned it off. That evening I walked through my house with new eyes. It was a good house, bought with my late husband's life insurance money and my own careful savings. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a garden I'd lovingly maintained for 12 years. Worth about $400,000 in today's market. In my bedroom closet, I found the photo albums I'd put away years ago. Pictures of Natalie as a baby, as a toddler, graduating high school, her wedding day. In every photo where we appeared together, I was smiling at her and she was looking somewhere else. I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. Wednesday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Emma stood on my porch in her school uniform, looking nervous and younger than her 15 years. I opened the door immediately. Whatever was happening between Natalie and me, Emma didn't deserve to be caught in the middle. "Hi, Grandma. Mom said you're mad at us." "I'm not mad at you, sweetheart. Come in." We sat in my kitchen and I made her hot chocolate the way she liked it with extra marshmallows. She stirred it absently, not meeting my eyes. "Mom says you did something with the house loan and now we might have to move." My heart clenched. "Emma, what your mother said at your party on Sunday was very hurtful. I've decided I can't continue helping with the house payments." "But where will we go?" "That's for your parents to figure out, honey. They're adults." Emma looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't expected. Understanding. "She said you should be buried," Emma said quietly. "That was mean." "Yes, it was. I'm sorry she said that, Grandma." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." After Emma left for school, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The absence of obligation. No one needed me to fix their problems. No one was expecting me to pay their bills. No one was taking my help for granted while treating me like an inconvenience. For the first time in decades, I was free to be just myself. The call came on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after I'd removed myself from the mortgage. I was watering my orchids when my phone rang with Natalie's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mom." Her voice was different than I'd heard it in years. Shaky. Scared. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "The bank called yesterday. They're saying Marcus and I don't qualify for the loan on our own. They want us to either find a new cosigner or pay off the entire balance within 30 days. I continued watering my plants, saying nothing. "Mom, did you hear me? We have 30 days or we lose the house." "I heard you." "Well, aren't you going to do something about it?" I set down my watering can and sat in my kitchen chair. "Like what, Natalie?" "Like calling the bank and telling them you made a mistake. Like putting your name back on the loan. Like helping your own daughter instead of abandoning her." The word abandoning hung in the air between us. I thought about all the times I dropped everything to help her. All the emergencies that weren't really emergencies. All the last-minute babysitting requests. All the bills I'd paid without being asked. "You said I should be buried, Natalie. Dead people can't co-sign loans." Silence. Then, "That was just something I said when I was frustrated." "You're being dramatic." "Frustrated about what?" "About having a mother who's helped you with everything for 37 years. Look, we can talk about hurt feelings later. Right now, I need you to fix this." I almost laughed. Even now, even desperate, she was giving me orders. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, Natalie. I'm not fixing this. You're a grown woman with a husband and a job. Figure it out." The line went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke again. Her voice cold in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of myself when I was angry. "Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize what you've done to this family." She hung up. I sat in my kitchen for a long time after that call, waiting to feel guilty. Waiting for the familiar urge to call her back and apologize. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something unexpected, curiosity. For the first time in years, I genuinely didn't know what would happen next. The feeling was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Friday afternoon, I was reading in my garden when a car pulled into my driveway. Not Natalie's car. A beat-up sedan I didn't recognize. A woman about my age got out, looked around uncertainly, then walked toward my front door. I met her on the porch. "Can I help you? Are you Mrs. Henderson?" "Denise Henderson." "Yes. My name is Carol Wright. I'm Marcus's mother." I'd heard about Carol but never met her. She lived in Florida and rarely visited. I invited her in, made coffee, and waited to hear why she'd driven all the way from Tampa. "Natalie called me," Carol said, stirring sugar into her coffee with shaking hands. "She told me about the mortgage situation. She's asking me to co-sign the loan." "I see. Mrs. Henderson, I'm on a fixed income. I live in a retirement community. I can't take on a mortgage obligation like that. Carol looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from family drama. I recognized it because I've been living with it for years. She says you abandoned them, Carol continued. But she also told me what she said at Emma's party. About you being buried. I didn't respond. I was learning the power of letting other people fill uncomfortable silences. I raised 4 children, Carol said finally. None of them would ever speak to me the way she spoke to you. I don't blame you for what you did. Relief flooded through me. Someone understood. I told Natalie I can't help with the house, Carol continued. She didn't take it well. She said if none of the grandparents will help, she'll have to declare bankruptcy. That's her choice to make. Carol nodded slowly. She also said something else. She said she's been looking into having you declared incompetent, so she can take control of your finances. The coffee cup slipped in my hands. What? She thinks if she can prove you're not thinking clearly, she can get power of attorney and force you to put your name back on the loan. A chill ran down my spine. I'd heard of adult children doing this to their parents, using the legal system to gain control of their money. It was elder abuse, but it happened more often than people realized. Has she taken any steps? I don't know. But Mrs. Henderson, you should probably talk to a lawyer. After Carol left, I sat in my living room trying to process what I'd learned. My own daughter was considering having me declared mentally incompetent so she could access my money. The woman I'd given everything to was prepared to take away my autonomy, rather than accept responsibility for her own life. I called Robert Mills immediately. Denise twice in 1 week. What's going on? I told him about Carol's visit, about Natalie's threat. Robert listened with the careful attention of someone who'd seen this before. It's not as easy as she thinks, he said finally. To have someone declared incompetent requires medical evidence, court hearings, a lot of documentation. But we should protect you anyway. How? Several ways. We can set up a trust that removes your assets from potential guardianship proceedings. We can get you evaluated by a psychiatrist to document your mental competency. We can also file for a restraining order if she starts harassment. Do it. All of it. Denise, are you sure you want to take these steps? Once we start down this road, there's no going back with your relationship with your daughter. I thought about Natalie's comment at the birthday party, about her demand that I fix the mortgage situation, about her plan to have me declared incompetent. Robert, that relationship ended the moment she said I should be buried. I'm just making it official. Saturday morning I woke up to find a note taped to my front door. The handwriting was Natalie's, but the words were pure desperation. Mom, the bank wants an answer by Monday. If we lose this house, Emma will have to change schools. Is that really what you want? Dead women don't have to look their granddaughters in the eye and explain why they destroyed their family. But you're not dead yet, are you? I crumpled the note and threw it away. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I started planning a vacation. 3 weeks after the bank's deadline, I was loading camping gear into my new RV when my neighbor Mrs. Patterson stopped by with news I hadn't asked for but somehow needed to hear. Denise, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know. I saw the moving trucks at Natalie's house yesterday. I paused in securing a camping chair to the RV's exterior compartment. Moving trucks. Big ones. They were loading up everything. The house has a for sale sign in the yard now. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and continued packing. The RV was a 26-foot Winnebago, not brand new but well maintained, with everything I needed for life on the road. I'd bought it 2 weeks ago with money I'd never been able to spend on myself before. Money that had always gone to Natalie's emergencies. The truth was, I'd been planning this trip since the morning after Carol's visit. Not as an escape but as a beginning. For the first time in decades, I was free to go anywhere I wanted, do anything I chose, without considering someone else's needs first. My phone had been mercifully quiet since Monday, when the bank's deadline had passed. No frantic calls from Natalie, no guilt-laden text messages. The silence told me everything I needed to know about what had happened. That evening, as I was checking the RV systems one final time, Emma appeared at my door. She looked older somehow, and tired in a way that 15-year-olds shouldn't be. "Grandma, can I come in?" We sat in my living room. which looked strange now with half my furniture already donated to charity. I was keeping only what mattered: photos of my late husband, a few precious books, my mother's china. "We lost the house," Emma said without preamble. "We're moving to an apartment across town. Mom says it's your fault." I felt the familiar stab of guilt, but it was weaker now, dulled by weeks of understanding that this was never really about me. "What do you think, Emma?" She was quiet for a long time, picking at a loose thread on my sofa cushion. "I think Mom should have been nicer to you. Dad says she burned her bridges." "Your father said that?" "Yeah, he's pretty mad at her. He says they could have kept the house if she hadn't driven you away." Emma looked up at me with eyes that seemed much older than 15. "Grandma, where are you going to live?" I gestured toward the window where the RV sat in my driveway like a promise. "I'm going to travel for a while. See the country." "By yourself?" "By myself." Emma's eyes widened. "Aren't you scared?" I considered the question seriously. A year ago, the idea of traveling alone would have terrified me. But now? "No, sweetheart. I'm excited. Can I come visit you sometimes?" The hope in her voice broke my heart a little. "Emma, you'll always be welcome wherever I am. But you'll need to ask your parents' permission. They won't let me. Mom says you're being selfish and trying to punish us." I pulled Emma closer, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. "Sweetheart, sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions. Your mother and I see things very differently. She says you don't love us anymore." That one hit like a physical blow. "Emma, I will always love you. Always. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them treat you badly." Emma nodded against my shoulder. "I know. I heard her talking to Dad about that thing she wants to do. About saying you're not thinking right so she can control your money." My blood went cold. "What exactly did you hear?" "She called some lawyer. She wants to prove you're sick in your head so she can make decisions for you. Dad told her it was a terrible idea. But she says desperate times call for desperate measures." I hugged Emma tighter, grateful for Robert Mill's precautions. The psychiatric evaluation had declared me completely competent. The trust was ironclad. Natalie could try whatever legal maneuver she wanted, but she wouldn't succeed. "Emma, I need you to know something important. No matter what your mother tells you, no matter what happens between us, I am perfectly fine mentally. I'm making these decisions because I'm finally thinking clearly for the first time in years." After Emma left, I finished packing the RV and made my final preparations. Tomorrow morning I would leave this house, this town, and this life behind. I had no specific destination in mind, just a rough plan to head west and see where the road took me. That night I got one last call from Natalie. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom, I know you're there. I can see your lights on." I looked out my window. Sure enough, Natalie's car was parked across the street. "What do you want, Natalie?" "I want to understand how you can do this to us." To Emma, "We're living in a 2-bedroom apartment now. Emma has to share a room with us because it's all we can afford." "I'm sorry Emma is uncomfortable. That must be difficult for all of you." "Difficult?" Natalie's voice rose. "Mom, we lost everything. Our house, our stability, our future. All because you couldn't handle one comment at a birthday party." I sat down heavily in my chair. "Natalie, do you have any idea how much money I've given you over the years?" "That's what parents do, Mom. They help their children." "How much, Natalie? Do you know the actual number?" Silence. "Over $300,000. Your house down payment, your mortgage payments, Emma's school, your car repairs, your emergencies. $300,000 of my retirement money. You never said it was a loan." "It wasn't a loan. It was a gift. From someone who loved you and wanted to help. And in return, you told a room full of people that I should be dead." The line was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally she spoke and her voice was different. Smaller. "I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did. And now you want to have me declared incompetent, so you can force me to keep paying for your mistakes." "How did you?" She stopped herself. "Emma told me. She hears everything, Natalie. Including how little you think of me." Another long silence. When Natalie spoke again, there was something broken in her voice. "What do you want from me, Mom?" I looked around my nearly empty living room, at the RV visible through my window, at the life I was about to begin. Nothing, Natalie. I don't want anything from you anymore. 6 months later, I was sitting on a beach in Oregon, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold I'd never noticed before. My RV was parked in a campground just 50 yards from the ocean, and for the first time in my 68 years, I understood what peace actually felt like. The journey here hadn't been without challenges. Learning to drive a 26-foot vehicle had terrified me at first, but necessity and determination had made me competent quickly. I'd gotten lost more times than I cared to count, dealt with mechanical problems, and spent more than a few nights feeling lonely and questioning my decision. But I'd also seen the Grand Canyon at sunset, had coffee with strangers who became friends in campgrounds across the country, and discovered that I was far braver and more capable than I'd ever imagined. My phone buzzed with a text message. Over the past months, I'd heard from Natalie sporadically. Sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, occasionally apologetic. This morning's message was different. Mom, Emma wants to see you. She's been asking every day for 3 weeks. She says she needs to tell you something important. Please. I'd been expecting this. Emma had been texting me regularly since I left, sending photos of her new school, updates about her friends, little messages that let me know she was thinking of me. Her texts were the bright spots in my days, reminders that some relationships were worth preserving. I typed back, I'm in Cannon Beach, Oregon. Oceanside RV Park, Site 42. She's welcome anytime, but she'll need your permission and a way to get here. The response came quickly. We'll figure it out. 3 days later, I was making coffee in my RV when I heard familiar voices outside. Through my window, I saw Emma walking toward me, taller than she'd been 6 months ago, followed by someone I didn't expect, Marcus. I opened the door and Emma practically flew into my arms. Grandma, I can't believe you actually live in this thing now. It's so cool. Marcus hung back, looking uncomfortable but determined. Mrs. Henderson, thank you for letting us come. I invited them in, made sandwiches and hot chocolate, and listened as Emma chattered about school, her friends, and how different everything was in the apartment. Marcus was quiet, but attentive to Emma in a way I hadn't noticed before. Grandma, Emma said finally, I have something to tell you. Dad and we've been talking a lot since you left. About Mom and how she treats people. I glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly at his daughter. Mom tried to do that thing with the lawyers, Emma continued. The thing about saying you were sick so she could control your money. But it didn't work. I know, sweetheart. My lawyer told me. Dad told her she was wrong to try it. He said she'd been wrong about a lot of things. Marcus cleared his throat. Mrs. Henderson, I owe you an apology. I should have stood up for you years ago. I should have told Natalie that the way she treated you was unacceptable. I studied my son-in-law's face. He looked older, worn down by months of conflict and financial stress. What changed, Marcus? Honestly, losing the house was a wake-up call. Natalie kept saying it was your fault, but I started adding up all the money you'd given us over the years. I realized we'd been taking advantage of you and I was ashamed. Emma leaned forward eagerly. Dad's been different since we moved. He stands up to Mom now when she says mean things about you. How is your mother handling that? Marcus and Emma exchanged a look. Not well, Marcus admitted. She's angry most of the time. She blames everyone but herself for what happened. She's talking about moving back to live with her sister in Phoenix. And you? I'm getting divorced, he said quietly. I can't live with someone who would try to have her own mother declared incompetent for money. That's not the person I thought I married. My heart broke a little for all of them. I'm sorry, Marcus. I never wanted this to tear your family apart. You didn't tear it apart, Mrs. Henderson. Natalie did. You just stopped holding it together. Emma reached for my hand. Grandma, Dad, and I want to know if we can visit you sometimes. Like really visit. Maybe travel with you for a few days during my school breaks. I looked at this girl who had somehow grown wise beyond her years through all the family chaos, and at her father who had finally found the courage to do the right thing. I would love that, I said, and meant it completely. We spent the afternoon walking on the beach, collecting shells and talking about lighter things. As the sun began to set, Marcus pulled me aside while Emma was exploring tide pools. Mrs. Henderson, there's something else I need to tell you. Natalie hired a private investigator to track you down. She's planning to show up here. My stomach tightened. When? Soon. Maybe tomorrow. I wanted to warn you. That evening, after Marcus and Emma had driven to their hotel, I sat outside my RV with a cup of tea and thought about what tomorrow might bring. Part of me dreaded seeing Natalie again, but a larger part felt ready for whatever conversation was coming. The next morning I was sitting at my small outdoor table, reading and enjoying the ocean breeze, when a rental car pulled into the campground. I watched Natalie get out, look around uncertainly, then spot me and walk over. She looked different. Thinner, older, with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. She stopped a few feet from my table and just stared at me. "You look good," she said finally. "Thank you. You look tired." "I am tired. I'm tired of everything falling apart. I'm tired of Marcus treating me like I'm some kind of monster. I'm tired of Emma asking about you every single day." I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Sit down, Natalie." She sat, but perched on the edge of the chair like she might need to run. "I came to ask you to come home. This is my home now. Mom, you're 68 years old. You can't live in a trailer forever." I smiled. "Watch me." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves crash against the shore. Finally, Natalie spoke again. "I'm sorry about what I said at Emma's party. I was frustrated about money, and I took it out on you. I know. Do you forgive me?" I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, who had hurt me more deeply than anyone else ever had. "I forgive you, Natalie. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were." Her face crumpled. "So that's it? You're just going to abandon your family forever?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. Emma and Marcus are welcome here anytime. You're welcome here too. If you can treat me with respect." "What does that mean?" "It means no more demands for money. No more treating me like an obligation. No more expecting me to fix your problems or pay for your choices." Natalie was quiet for a long time, staring out at the ocean. When she finally spoke, her voice was very small. "I don't know how to do that." "Then you'll have to figure it out." She left that afternoon without saying goodbye. But she also left without making any demands, without trying to guilt me into changing my mind, without attempting to control me. It was progress. 6 weeks later, I got a letter from her. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter. In it, she told me she was moving to Phoenix, that she and Marcus were divorcing amicably, and that she was starting therapy to understand why she treated me so badly. At the bottom, in handwriting that reminded me of the little girl she'd once been, she wrote, "I'm sorry I wasn't the daughter you deserved. I hope someday I can be." I folded the letter carefully and put it in my memory box, next to photos of Emma and the camping permits from all the beautiful places I'd visited. That evening, I called Emma and Marcus to make plans for Thanksgiving. We were going to meet in Colorado, where I'd found a campground near a ski resort. Emma was learning to snowboard, and Marcus was teaching himself to cook on a camp stove. As I ended the call and looked out at another spectacular Oregon sunset, I realized something profound. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I wanted to be, with people who actually wanted me there. 68 years old, and I was finally free.